Hi guys, Karen Schwartz here. Today I wanted to do a tutorial for you guys where I show you how to use the Oxymoron machine project on Koalgo. So if you haven't been to Koalgo yet, the link is right up here. It's koalgo.herokuapp.com, and this is a really fun resource that you can use with your students to integrate coding into your English class. So today we're going to talk about how to use the Oxymoron machine project. So all you're going to do is come here to the website and go to Get Started. And you'll see here at the top, we have this explanation about what an oxymoron is and some examples from Shakespeare. We have the project area right here with the steps on the left-hand side and the code editor where the students will be working on the right-hand side. We have the solution right here that you or your students can check out as needed. We have some teaching ideas and some teaching standards and Python references for you as well. So, the Oxymoron machine is a project where students can learn not only about oxymorons, but also about coding concepts like values and variables, concatenation, and they're also going to learn about zero-based indexing. So let's jump right in. So when you have your students come to the page, the first thing that they're going to do is play around a little bit with variables and values, because that's a really important coding concept that students will need to understand before they can really do anything else with the project. And one thing that I do want to mention here is that on the right hand side we actually have two editors, but you can only see one of them at a time. So for this variables and values, because the students are going to be doing some practice, this is basically our practice editor space right here. And you'll notice there's also this space on here for indexing. That's going to be a later step. So when they click on the step for indexing, they're going to be using this space over here. When they move on to step 2, you'll notice that screen, that editor goes away, and then they're going to see this, which is the actual space where they are creating the project. So just so there's no confusion, again, there are basically two editors going on. One of them is the practice space, and the other space is where they're actually building the project. Okay, and one does not affect the other. So if your students are worried about like messing up their project space, tell them to not worry about that, because the two editors did not interact. We're just showing one and then hiding it again. Okay, so have your students play around with the variables and values. Just a quick overview of what a variable and value is. Think of a variable as a box, and of a value as something that you put in the box. And so the cool thing about this is that when you're doing stuff with code, you can do stuff with the variable and it'll make things happen to the value. So the variable, like I said earlier, it's like the box that the value goes inside. You can also think of it as like a label that you slap on to the value. And anytime you use that label somewhere, the value is going to be affected. So just in case you're not super familiar with variables and variables yet, values and variables, let me show you some examples. So, and this is what your students are going to be doing too, because I'm assuming when I build these projects, I'm assuming that they may not have too much experience with variables and values. So, they're going to come here and they're going to declare a variable called animal, and then they're going to assign a value called cat to that variable. Okay? And then just so you can see what I'm talking about when I say that you can do things with the values when you're doing things with the variables, we are going to print the variable animal, and then we're going to run this. So before I run the program, I should point out, anything that has a hashtag in front of it is not real code and is not going to affect the program. Very important. This is what we call comments in programming. Very useful whenever you're writing some sort of program And if you want to explain what the code is doing, you use something called comments. And so when we are using Python, which is a programming language, we always have this hashtag here and then whatever we want. Notice that we have this green text. So anything that's in the green text is not code. It's just the notes that I put in there so that you can follow along. Okay, so when we are going to run the program, all that program is going to be is this other text right here, and it's just going to ignore this green text. Okay, so now we have this variable here, animal, and we have the value cat that we've assigned to it. Notice also that this word cat is a string, and therefore we have put quotation marks around it. Whenever we are declaring a string variable, we have to put those quotation marks around said string. And then down here, we are using something called the print function. So this is something within Python that allows us to see the results of our program. And so if you put print here, and then if you put the name of this variable here in parentheses, we are going to see whatever animal is. Okay, so I want you to guess in your mind what you think the result is going to be when we print this variable. What are we going to see here on the right hand side? So I want you to have that in your mind, and we're going to run the program and see what happens. Ta-da! Okay, so if you were thinking, oh, we're going to see cat, you were right. Because this animal basically represents cat, and so whenever we manipulate this this variable animal, we're manipulating cat. We're doing stuff with cat. Okay, so as I explain over here, there's different types of values that we can have. So we're going to declare another variable here. So this one is called favorite song. Notice that our variable names are always lowercase, and if we have multiple words in a variable name, we're going to put an underscore between them. That's just kind of the convention. So then we are going to have a value here, and we're just going to have the name of a song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So notice that we can have a value that is more than one word long if we're using a string value. And let's print that. And oh wait, actually I have to tell it to print. That would probably be good. So then we're going to go here. Whoops, I should do this below the instructions. I should do it below where it says print the variable favorite song. Okay, so then we're going to do print favorite song. Okay, so what do you think is going to happen? Have that in your mind. Ta-da! Okay, so now we have cat and Somewhere Over the Rainbow because the program is running through all of the instructions. So it sees this print animal, so it's going to do that again, and then it sees this print favorite song, so it's going to do that, which is Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Okay, so hopefully now you're starting to get the idea of variables and values. Let's see, I think we're going to do one more thing that's a little bit more complex. So now we're going to do favorite songs. So now we're going to have a list. So because you may want to have a situation where you have several items in a list, and those all belong to a single variable, and then you can manipulate the items in that list by doing some stuff with the variable. So, and you're going to see what I mean more with that a little bit later, but for now, we're just going to write some names of some songs right here. Okay. All right. So we have favorite songs, and then we have Somewhere Over the Rainbow, we have Happy Birthday, and Imagine by John Lennon. And now we're going to print favorite songs. Now, what do you think we're going to get? Have that idea in your mind? I'm actually going to clear this just so we have a clean slate here. Ta-da! Okay. So now we have cat, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and then we have our list, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Happy Birthday, and Imagine. So, I'm curious. I think we can play around with this a little bit. Let's see what happens there. Okay, so notice that before I had the brackets here, so notice that if we remove the brackets, we just end up with parentheses. So even if you leave the brackets off, it's still going to just sort of like set it off as its own unit anyway. Yeah, so there's that. Okay, so now you've gotten the idea a little bit of variables and values. So now we're going to go to step 2 and we're actually going to start building the program. Okay, so before we jump into this, we're going to go back up to the top because up here it talks about the oxymorons and gives some examples. These are some examples from Romeo and Juliet. Oh, why then, oh, brawling love, oh, loving hate, oh, heavy lightness, serious vanity, feather of lead, bright smoke, cold fire, sick health. So these are some classic oxymorons from Shakespeare. An oxymoron is a pairing of two words that are opposite. Typically, the first word is an adjective and the second word is a noun. So, serious vanity, we have adjective, noun. Cold fire, we have adjective, noun. So when you're thinking about oxymorons and how you're going to explain them to your students, you can think of it like, yes, they are two opposing words and you have to have that part in there, but you should also remind them that there are also different parts of speech. We have an adjective and then we have an... Okay, so in this project, we are going to be using several oxymorons from Romeo and Juliet. And the oxymorons that we are going to use are brawling love, loving hate, heavy lightness, and sweet sorrow. So those are the oxymorons that we're doing that we're using. And in this first step, what we're doing is basically splitting those oxymorons up into two lists, lists of adjectives and nouns. So like I just said, an oxymoron consists of an adjective and a noun. So what we're doing in this first part is just splitting up those components. So in order to do that, we are going to first have a variable called adjectives, and we're going to have brawling, loving, heavy, and sweet. Okay, and then we're going to have their corresponding nouns. So we're going to declare another variable called nouns, and let's see, I'm just gonna put in the quotation marks and then put in a comma. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Okay. Alright, so the first noun is love, for brawling love, and then we have hate, and then we have lightness, and then we have sorrow. So we have brawling, hate, brawling love, loving hate, heavy lightness, sweet sorrow. So we have these classic Shakespearean oxymorons. And one thing I do want to point out is that you don't have to have your students use these particular oxymorons. If you are in the middle of a Shakespeare unit and you have other Shakespearean oxymorons you want to use, or you have other ones from Romeo and Juliet, because these are all from Romeo and Juliet, use those. Or even better, you can have your students make their own oxymorons and then have them use those ones to as part of the project. And I talk about how to do that right here. Here's an idea for a little unplugged activity that you can have students do to generate their own oxymorons. So after you watch this video, go check that out so that you can have them make their own oxymorons. Okay, so so we have the adjectives and the nouns. Okay, Okay, so then we're going to go to step 3. So now, when you click on step 3, I'm going to do that again slowly so you see. Okay, step 2, ta-da. Step 3, you're looking at it and it's like, wait, it's the stuff we had from earlier. Yes, because basically, like I said earlier, all you were doing is we're hiding the editors that we don't need when we don't need it. So, this is the stuff that we were doing before with variables and values in our practice space. And now we're going to use this indexing practice space down here. So indexing is a really cool concept in Python. It's basically this idea that if you have a list of items, each of those items corresponds to a number just automatically without you having to do anything extra. And so then when you do something with that number for that item list, you are doing something with that item. So let me show you what I mean. So let's say, for example, okay, well, I'll just do it right here so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so the students are going to read through the steps, and then they're going to come over here and they're going to remove the hashtags from this code. Because remember, when we don't have the hashtags, it's actual code. Okay, so we have this list here, adjectives. I'm actually going to add in another one just so it's like a little bit clearer, I think. So brawling, let me see, what was our other one? Let me go back to step 2, brawling, loving. Okay. So let's say we have brawling, and then we have loving, and we'll do a third one just for good measure. So the third adjective that we're using is heavy. Okay. So we have brawling, loving, and heavy. Okay. So that's our list of adjectives. And remember how I showed you earlier, up here, we can have like multiple items in our list. So, so we have this list, brawling, loving, heavy, of adjectives. Great. So now let's talk about the indexing. So, remember how I was saying that each item in a list is automatically assigned to a number? So, Python uses something called zero-based indexing, which means that it starts at 0. So this first item here, instead of being 1, which is what most of us would usually think of as being the first in a series, it's going to use 0, okay? So again, this first item in this list has this like invisible number assigned to it, and that number is a 0. Again, this is all just like Python magic. You don't have to do anything extra to have these numbers assigned to these item lists. It just is. It's just part of Python. It's pretty cool. So brawling is 0. Loving is 1. And heavy is 2. Okay? And then if we had something after heavy, that would be 3, and so on. Okay. So now that you kind of see how the numbers are assigned, now let's like do some manipulation here. So let's say that we wanted to get the first item in our list, okay, and in our list of adjectives. We want to grab that value and we want to assign it to a variable called word. Well, a really easy way to do this is to declare a variable over here called word and to assign it this. Okay, so what we're doing here, so we have this word adjectives, but this isn't just like the word adjectives. This is the variable adjectives, okay? So we are, we're saying, hey, adjectives value, I need you to, or adjectives variable, sorry. I need you to come over here. So we have this adjectives variable, and then we have this 0 in brackets right here. So hopefully now you can start to see like, oh, I know what's coming. So, but I'll explain it anyway. So what's going to happen is when we print word, we're going to see that what happens is that the program, because we have this adjectives here, that is this variable up here, the program is going to look at that and say, okay, she wants me to pull the item number that has this index number, or the item that has the index number of 0 from the list of adjectives. I'll say that one more time. The program is going to pick an item from this list that has the index number of 0. Okay, are you picking up what I'm putting down? So then when we print word, I want you to have in your mind what you think the output over here is going to be. So I'm going to clear this out. I'm going to run it. And ta-da! Okay, it is brawling. So if you guessed brawling, you were right. Because again, brawling is assigned this index number of 0. So when we have this variable word and we assign it this value of adjectives with the 0 in the brackets, and then we print the word, we get brawling. Pretty cool. So your students are going to go through this little mini lesson in step 3 to learn about zero-based indexing. Okay, so once they learn about that, they're going to go to step 4, and then this is where they're going to start to learn like how to use this oxymoron formula of putting together adjectives and nouns. So we're going to declare a new variable called oxymoron. Okay, so now your students are going to read through this, and then they're going to come here. So this is what they are going to be typing here on line 6. Okay, so they're going to have oxymoron, and then they're going to do adjectives 0 plus, and I'll explain what's happening here in just a second. Okay. Okay, so what's happening here is, so basically up here, we split our adjectives and nouns, or we split our oxymorons into adjectives and nouns, right? So we split our oxymorons. Now, in the rest of our program, we are going to put the oxymorons back together, okay? So in order to do that, we need to use zero-based indexing to pull the right items from these lists. So we're going to have adjective 0, which is going to be brawling, because that's the first item here in our list. And then we're going to have nouns 0, which is going to be the first item in our nouns list, which is love. So it's going to give us brawling, love. So something that's important is that we need to have this extra space here when we run the program. Otherwise, our words are going to get smushed up against each other. So if you don't believe me, let's just try that and see what happens. Let's try that and see what happens. Okay, so it might not even work, actually, because I'm clicking on it and nothing is... Oh, no, it's not working because I haven't told it to print anything. That's why. Okay, so let's just try print oxymoron. Now let's see what happens. Okay, so yeah, so see how it just sort of smushed it together. We don't want that, right? So we're going to add a lovely little space here, and then we're going to run it again, and hang on. We're going to run it. Oh, maybe I need to have like that. Let me try that. Ta-da! Okay, good. So yeah, you're going to add this space here. Make sure there's a space between your quotation marks, and then it should work. So great. So we split it here, and then we brought it together here, which is cool. But now we need to do this for all of our oxymorons because we have 4 of them. So your students are going to go through these steps, and then step 6 is going to tell them that they need to do this, or step 7 is going to tell them that they need to do this for all of their oxymorons. So then okay, so again here, we're basically teaching our program the formula for oxymorons. So now, what do you think we need to put here? So we know that for our first oxymoron, we needed 0 and 0. Yeah, we're going to need 1 and 1. So we're going to have that. Okay, so now when we run the program, we're not only going to have brawling love, but we are also going to have, oh, loving hate. Interesting. Okay, so this is, I see what's going on. Okay, so it did the second one, loving hate, I think because that's the second line of code that I have here, and so it's just going to look at the more like the latest one or the second one. Okay, but we want all of our oxymorons. So this is what we need to do. So we need to have oxymoron 1, oxymoron 2, right? And then we're going to change this in just a second. We're not going to worry about running it right now. So we're going to do this. Oxymoron 3. Adjectives. And then remember, this is going to be 2 because it's 0 based. And then we're going to have that nouns 2. And then we're going to have one more for adjectives 3. Okay, so sweet. So now our program knows about all of our oxymorons that we're trying to do. So now we need to print them. So we can get rid of that for now. Okay, so now we need to print them. So there's a couple different ways that you can print. You can do it like this, where you just have print oxymoron 1, and then you just and then print oxymoron 2, whatever. So you can do it like that, or you can do it like this, where you keep it within the same parentheses. And this is just gonna make it like a horizontal list, basically, instead of a vertical list. But if you want it as a vertical list, you would just do it one at a time. So we're gonna do that, and then let's clear this out. Okay, so now we have all of our oxymorons: sprawling love, loving hate, heavy lightness, and sweet sorrow. Okay, so that is how you do the oxymoron machine project. Again, this is a fun way to have students play around with oxymorons and see how to represent them computationally while you're doing a Shakespeare unit or a poetry unit. Or something like that. I do want to give a shout out to to Trinket, this group here. They create, they have this website where basically you can make trinkets, so you can make code there, like this editor or something like this. You can make it there on their website, and then you can embed it on your own website. So that is trinket.io is the website. So yeah, shout out to them, and please come check out these projects and let me know what you think about it in the comments. All right, as always, happy coding and happy having fun with literature.